Network. The whole point of my talk show is to show you that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be, to prove them, still amount to something.
Hi, my name's Skye Borgman. I'm a director and a producer of documentary films, and I was just interviewed by Keith Andrew, and I think he's doing a great job, and I think the message he's putting out into the world is special and wonderful.
Today on the KeithAndrewNetWork, it is episode 984, where I'm here with a good friend of mine. You know her from the recommendation, so let's jump right into the interview. The first question I want to ask is called Icebreakers. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background.
Well, my name is Skye Borgman, and I live in Los Angeles, California. I'm a documentary filmmaker here. I've been in Los Angeles now for almost 23 years. I was born in Anchorage, Alaska, raised in Oregon, University in Washington, so I've lived almost everywhere on the West Coast. I'm a West Coast girl for sure, and I really fell in love with documentary films when I was going to theater school. I loved public storytelling, and then I spent about 5 years after I graduated from school sort of traveling around the world, really. I mean, I started in Europe, what was going to be a 3-month sort of European vacation, and fell in love with traveling. And so I stayed there for a year, and then I went to Asia for the next 4 years and really got such a better understanding of the world, and wanted to find a way that I could combine public storytelling with travel. And I fell in love with photography and with imagery at that point. And so that's what really sort of got me into making documentary films. And so I didn't really have any background in making docs. And so I moved to Los Angeles and applied to USC Film School, got in, and I guess have been working in the film industry ever since.
No, absolutely. And that brings up my next question is what sounds like an oxymoron, but I'm going to ask anyway. Did you major in, the question I was going to ask you is what did you major in? But did you major in filming?
I did. So I did my undergraduate degree at Cornish College of the Arts, and that was theater. And then I went and got my master's degree at University of Southern California in film and television.
Oh, nice. Here's a fun little question for you. Were you a study nerd or party animal?
Oh, I was definitely a study nerd, although the studying was different for both Cornish and USC. It was really, you weren't sort of sitting home studying, going through books, but it was researching some things, but it was really getting out and making films or putting on plays and doing all that kind of stuff. And I was always very dedicated to doing that and didn't end up partying a lot. So definitely a study nerd.
So no fraternities for you?
No, we didn't even have sororities or fraternities at Cornish. It was a very small school. I had a class of 13 people, and our sports department consisted of a football and a soccer ball in the corner of a library. So it was a small performing arts school. No sort of rushes or no sororities there.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I do like that torture device you have in the corner over there.
Yeah, it doesn't get used all that often, unfortunately. So that's why it's tucked up in the corner. It'd be nice if I was able to do a little bit of a row on it every day, but it just doesn't seem to happen.
Never say never, especially with the holidays coming up. And as everyone knows, we are on the road to Christmas in a couple of days. So the question I want to ask is, what are you thankful for, and what are your holiday plans?
I'm thankful for the family that I have, my husband, my dog, my mom and my sister and her husband, and holiday plans are taking it kind of easy. It's been a busy year for me, and so it's nice to just have this 2 weeks down to spend some time at home with my family, to do some projects around the house that haven't gotten done, and we're gonna have a pretty mellow Christmas Eve and Christmas, and the New Year's probably mellow too, just staying at home. Mostly, my husband and I usually travel for the holidays, and so this is the first time we're going to be at home for Christmas, and I'm really thankful for that.
No, absolutely. What are your plans for the new year?
We don't really have any yet. I think we probably will get a bottle of champagne and maybe watch the ball drop on TV, and that might be it. I'm not quite sure yet. We might come up with something better than that, but at the moment, that's what we've got planned.
Absolutely. Now, this is not really a controversial question, but a lot of people think it's a stupid question. I think it's interesting. With everything going on, and if you don't want to answer, you can just say pass. With the whole pandemic and the coronavirus, people always say, I wish I can stay home and do absolutely nothing. Well, 2 years ago, you got that. But people are like, oh, next year, 2023, the pan shot's gonna come out. It's gonna kill the coronaviruses. Then it'll slowly go back to normal. Find out today from the doctor that this whole coronavirus isn't going anywhere, and it's gonna be like the flu. That's the first question. The second one on X is, with everything going on with the whole corona, has this given you an opportunity to stand back and refocus your life, and have you seen it in a different point of view?
I think I've definitely sort of been able to reevaluate my life because of the pandemic and everything that happened from that. I mean, I was in a situation where I had just finished production on a film and was going into post production. So we were able to sort of transition pretty easily into post. If it had been production, it would be completely different. But so I was able to stay really, really busy during the pandemic. But that said, it really does make you sort of stop and think about the things that are important to you, and think about everything you have in your life and everything that you may not have in your life, and people that you have in your life. And so it absolutely did make me stop and think about the important things.
No, you're absolutely right. Now we have 14. It's funny, I have a lot of index cards. Some of them, and I do apologize, my disability does show on the show, but I don't do my interviews as late. I have so many index cards. I have producing, I have acting, I have writing, and I was like, you know what? Finally, I get to use the producer one, because you are a producer. So I just want to say thank you for that. So the first one I'm going to ask is, who inspired you to become a producer, and how many years have you been producing?
Oh my gosh, there were some pretty incredible people out there. I mean, I think the first documentaries that really sort of made an impact to me were documentaries by Errol Morris, and I think he is one of the most inspiring documentary filmmakers out there. And then recently, there have been some incredible people who are making documentaries and really sort of pushing the envelope with documentaries. So there's just so many people out there. It's hard for me to just name sort of one or two, but Errol Morris absolutely, I think, was the first person who really inspired me to make documentaries.
And what experience do you have in making videos?
Well, it started out as having very little experience for me making videos. When I was traveling, I was taking pictures and learning how to compose things and learning, light and what light can do and what a camera can do. And so then it was really my education at USC that taught me sort of the basics of making videos and movies at that point. And from that point on, it's just making them, really, an experience making them and being on set, because that's an education that you can't really get at a university, I don't think. I mean, you can sort of put things together and you can learn about the craft of it, but the politics of making films and the nuance of making films and the real craft that comes from, who am I and what is my voice and how do I build that craft out and how do I articulate my voice, that's something that just comes with making movies and having some failures or seeing ways that you did things that you could maybe do them a different way, and seeing some successes and then going, well, that scene didn't quite go together, and why didn't it go together? And always sort of taking stock and watching back your work and looking at how it went together and what you can do better. And building, I think it's what I want to do for the rest of my life, is to continue to really build my craft in every day that I go forward in making films.
No, I feel 100% the same way about my talk show. Showing people with a disability We've got someone who's on the spectrum being retarded who reads and learns at middle school, high school level, learns at a slower pace. Look at what he was able to accomplish. Thanks to you, we're getting closer to our goal of 1,000 episodes. Been doing this for almost 10 years. And it's a learning process. That's like your films. You take it one step at a time, and you're always going to learn something from it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, and I think that's how you approach everything because, 10 years ago, if you were sitting there going, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to reach 1,000 episodes? But one step at a time, and here you are, just a few episodes away from 1,000, and that's incredible.
No, I really appreciate that. And I do have some questions for you off the air. I would love to work with you. Now, the question I want to ask you right now is what is coming up in the works for you? Like you mentioned, you do documentaries. What inspires you or what gets you interested in doing documentaries about certain people? It's a people, animals.
Yeah, I mean, I do the documentaries that I do have been very much an exploration of the human condition. And a lot of that times those really settle in what everybody calls the true crime space. I don't necessarily think of the films I do as true crime films, although there's a lot of crime in them. But I think about them as films that are really looking at people and in the films I do there's a full spectrum of people from what brings out the very best in us and what brings out the very worst in us, and I think there's no better place than the true crime genre to kind of explore that the frailty of the human condition.
Throwing you a curveball, letting you be completely honest. So you can say yes, you can say no. If I offered you an idea of doing a documentary about me, would you?
About you? Well, I'd have to know more about you, but you seem very interesting, so I'd say I'd definitely consider it.
No, we can definitely talk about that. And not to put you on the spot, but I like to have fun with everyone. Now, with everything that you accomplish, what is the most rewarding part of being a producer and doing all your films?
It's definitely meeting the people that I meet and that are part of my films, because I'm in such a fortunate position to be able to meet people that I would never meet in a different job. I mean, here we are talking. I've met you. I would never have had the opportunity to meet you if I did something else. The people that I go and the stories that I tell, they all are human stories or people stories. And so I'm able to come into these people's lives for a very short period of time. And they tell me such incredible stories about their lives. And some of them are very emotional and some of them are very challenging and very difficult. And so to get that trust with people and to be able to just step into these people's lives and have them share their lives with me is the best part of the job.
I know this one, excuse me, this one's more of a writing question, but I added it to the card anyway, but might as well ask it because I do actually like this question. And it's especially for me too, so you can definitely relate to this. You can make hundreds and thousands of films, but with that being said, sorry, I had to look at it. What's hard about catering and building the right audience? As a filmmaker, I bet that really sums up everything you do.
Yeah, I mean, the films that I make are really trying to look at crime in a different way. It's really looking at sort of a victim forward sort of stance, and so those are the stories. That's the not the brand I'm trying to build, but it's really my canon of work is looking at the victim's point of view, the victim's perspective, the survivor's perspective, and so building an audience, I think, that is interested in looking at crime in a different way is really important to me.
Actually, I do have a part two to that. What are your least favorite types of stories and shows to produce?
Oh, interesting, because I don't know that I've really been directing or producing shows that I don't want to be working on. And I think I'm really lucky in that sense that all of the shows that I'm working on are shows that I feel very, very passionate about. So Yeah, I'm not sure that I have it. I also feel like you can learn something from everything. I mean, I think really if I'm working with people who don't bring respect and listening and compassion to the table and to the workspace, those are probably the worst kind of shows. But from a subject matter, most of the shows I've worked on are shows that I'm absolutely passionate about.
No, absolutely. Same thing with my interviews. I feed off energy. You're feeding off my energy, I'm feeding off yours. And as long as there's a good, trying to find a word for it, but a good balance, you're going to have a great interview. So there's some people I interviewed, fantastic. That is a lot of fun. There's other people like, what am I doing? They honestly don't give a damn. But it's like with everything. It's not a reflection of you because you're showing people you're a good person and you're giving this person an opportunity. It's only a reflection of them of they look like an ass.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I mean, I'm sure in the close to 1,000 episodes you've done, and in probably thousands of hours of filming I've done, we all come up against people who we just don't mesh with,
Yeah.
right? And it's also a great learning opportunity when that happens too, because you sit there going, what am I going to do in this situation? Am I going to just sort of turn my back on them and walk away, depending on who it is? Maybe you can do that, maybe you can't. Or do I find a way to work with this person? And I think the answers to those questions are always different depending on whatever circumstance you're in. And but it's always challenging. But I think I always come out of it a little bit better at just people, and knowing people and experiencing people and knowing how to work with people.
Well, let me ask you this, because you worked on hundreds of different films and documentaries and still working on them. Have you worked with people with disabilities, and how do you handle working in a situation that is stressful?
I have worked with people with disabilities before, and I think it's an incredible opportunity to work with people with disabilities because we see things in different ways, and I think their experiences in life are very different than my experiences in life, and so I always love the opportunity to be able to do that. And the second part, what was the second part of the question? I don't remember.
Actually, I don't remember too.
Okay.
So let's just forget
Sorry.
about it. Don't worry, I have that effect on people. My friend Michael Tramberg says, "Don't throw multiple questions. Ask one question, then another." He's like, I asked one after another, then right. Same thing. I have no idea what the hell you're even talking.
I know, but then I'm like, it's only two questions. You think I'd be able to remember the two, but then the second
Yeah.
one just flew away. So.
Well, let me ask you. You mentioned you have worked with people with disabilities, and obviously you're working with me, and I appreciate that. So if I want to follow in your footsteps, say I want your honest, and you can be brutally honest. If you were my producer, maybe you can work on that. If you were my producer, how would you produce my show differently? From what you have seen so far as a producer, what are some of your opinions and feedbacks?
I think every show, in a way, has has a way of telling itself. It sort of tells you what it's supposed to be, and so I think the first step in sort of approaching any story is to really listen and to do a lot of research and go, okay, what is the story here? What's the perspective of this story? Because it can be a million different things. One sort of story, say we're telling a story about that torture device behind me, but we can tell a story in so many different ways. So it would be working with the people involved, with you, with whoever's involved, and kind of go, what's the message that we're trying to give? Why are we even making this story? What's important about making this story? And then to be able to sort of come back to that thesis time and time again, because you lose your way. I mean, some of these shows that I'm working on last from a year to 3 years, and so you're putting it together, and then you just kind of forget what the main point of it was at the beginning. So to be able to go back and just go, why did we start doing this? What was the initial reason why we started doing this? And have we lost that? And how do we make that clear? And that's the important thing, I think, especially when you're working on shows for a long period of time.
And answer your question, well, it was the second question that's popped in my head. How can people with disabilities follow in your footsteps?
I think it's make films. I mean, I really think that's what it is, and do exactly what you're doing. You know, get out there and do what you want to be doing. Whether it's films, whether it's podcasts, whether it's whatever it is that you want to do. I think it really is get out there and do it. And if you don't know how to do something, ask questions or figure out how to do it, and talk to lots of people and kind of push fear to the side or lean into fear and then tackle it and then keep moving forward. I think that's true for people with disabilities as well as people without disabilities. I mean, I think fear is one thing that is crippling to everybody.
Yeah, it's funny. This reminded me of a line from Batman, a cartoon. Of course, my brother repeats it too. There's nothing to fear but fear itself.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think it's absolutely true.
Now, the next one I want to ask you, it's a kind of long question, but I'm going to turn it to two parts. What's the most discouraging moment you have ever experienced as a producer?
I think it really happened a little bit. Let me see. I'm trying to think. Discouraging moment. Um, I think it might be in relationships that have kind of been severed, and I think that's probably one of the most discouraging things where there was just a good working relationship with someone, and then that was sort of complicated by the job and complicated by people in the job, and to have that relationship end with someone that I thought was very, very important to me, and that was pretty hard.
No, absolutely. And the second part of that is while you're putting the project together, was it discouraging?
Look, I think when you're putting a project together, there's always moments of discouragement and encouragement. When you're finding what your different beats are, you're talking to people, and you've got people who want to be involved in your projects, and then you've got people who don't want to be involved in the projects for whatever reason they may have. And their voice would just bring such an important part to the project. And so it's always a little bit discouraging to talk to people when they for whatever reason they have don't want to be involved in a project.
No, absolutely. Now, I do have a couple questions for you off the air, but I'm going to pass it over to you. Was there any subjects or anything you want to promote? If you're interested, if next time you do a film and you have a cast together, I would love to invite you in the cast to be on the show, and I can help you promote it.
Oh, that'd be amazing. That'd be absolutely amazing. Yeah, I mean, I've got some shows. I've got one four-part show coming up early part of 2023. I don't know when it airs exactly, but it will be on Discovery Plus, and it's a four-parter called The Truth About Jim, and it's really looking at a family who think that there's somebody in their family that they feel that he could be a serial killer. And the story is really about generational trauma and the trauma that this man brought to three generations of women. And so it's a really interesting look at what generational trauma does.
No, absolutely. Was there any stories you like to share from over the years? Any success stories, funny stories, any pranks you pulled on people?
I mean, not so much pranks, but it's always, look, there's always great stories because we go to some really interesting places around the United States and sometimes outside of the United States and talk to people. And there's always travel stories where you just get stuck somewhere and meet some incredible people. Early on, when I was a director of photography, I remember we went to Grenada, and I was shooting a film, and none of our baggage arrived, and all of our equipment was on the plane. And so there was only one flight a week leaving from the airport that we landed in to the very small village that we were going to, and our bags were going to arrive after that flight left. So that flight left, we waited for our bags, and then we chartered a boat to get us to the place. And it was 3 days, I think, on a boat. And it was like a 16-foot aluminum boat with an outboard motor. And we were just going down river through jungles in Grenada with all of our gear to get to the little village where we were filming. And halfway along, I think we were using too much gas, we had too much weight, and so we had to like dump all of our clothes. We wanted to keep the gear and keep everything we needed for the shoot, but we stopped at somebody's house along the way that the captain knew and left all of our clothes behind and then made it the rest of the way and filmed for a week and then came back and picked up all our clothes at that same house and then made it home. So, but it was, it's a crew. There's 4 people on that crew that I've worked with for the last 25 years or so. And we're great friends and we have the opportunity occasionally to work together, and they're just a really good group of people. So with all those crazy stories, it's something that really, really bonds us all together too.
No, absolutely. Now, to certain events, I was going to ask you about, I like to know when and where you were and how this impacted your career as a photographer, as a producer, and have you done like similar ideas where, I'll give you an example. How did 9/11 impact your acting? I can't talk, holy shit. How did 9/11 impact your filming career? Did that give you a different outlook on life? Did it say, you know what, I should take my career more seriously because you don't know when your time is up?
It's interesting because I was in film school at the time of 9/11, and I remember sort of walking to a class and I'd heard about the Twin Towers, driving in and just couldn't believe it. And then I saw a friend of mine who was from New York, and he was standing outside of the building and he was just crying. And I just remember, thinking that, life is short, and take advantage of the moments. Every moment you have, take advantage of them.
And I was going to ask about January 6th, if not to talk about political, but you don't have to answer that. But do you think that people say it was a TV show? A lot of people say it was a good documentary, or they did it so they can turn it into a documentary. As a producer, what is your opinion about that? Do you think people just do stupid, ridiculous things just to have something to talk about?
I don't think they do it just to have something to talk about. I mean, I think people do things because they believe strongly. I mean, I mean, sometimes, sure. I mean, sometimes people are going to do things to to be able to tell a story, but
No, I agree with you 100%. Now, the question I want to ask you, wrapping up, I want you to be brutally honest. When I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what was your first reaction? What made you say yes, and would you recommend it to other people?
the first thing I did was I Googled you to see kind of what you had done, and then I think it was really just your story that you have disabilities and that you're putting out a message of hope and of like you can do anything you want to do and be anything you want to be, and nothing's going to stop you. And that was really what made me want to do the show with you.
No, absolutely. And now, how can people get in touch with you if they want to work with you?
Oh, I'm on Instagram. Sometimes I'm not great at social media. I'm okay at social media. But it's Skye Borgman, SKYEBORGMAN on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Those are pretty much the social platforms that I'm on.
No, absolutely. So this interview will be aired. I found out yesterday I can upload this to Instagram. So all my episodes of my talk show from this point forward will be shared on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and of course Facebook. 5 different platforms. But more importantly, when this is aired on Instagram, you can leave me a comment and our guest a comment. So we would love to interact with you, what you liked, what you didn't like, if you think I talk too much. But it's pretty much more interactive. Of course, you can leave a comment on Facebook and all that social media. But I think I do have a couple questions for you off the air. But if you're watching, definitely leave a comment and stay tuned. Make sure to like and subscribe to the Keith Andrew Network, because we are off to bigger and better things. Until we meet again, catch you later. Thank you and have a good night.